Ever feel like the world of Ethereum scaling is a bunch of super fast islands with no real way to travel between them?
Yeah.
Well, that's the interoperability problem.
Right.
And that's what we're diving into today with the Omni Network.
Exactly.
You've got their white paper right here, and it gets pretty technical.
It's pretty techy.
But we're going to try to break it down for everybody today.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating about this one is that they're not just building another bridge, they're really trying to leverage Ethereum's existing strengths in a way that I think could really be a game changer for the entire ecosystem.
Okay, I am so ready to dive into this.
Yeah.
But before we do,
Sure.
let's make sure everyone listening is on the same page.
Okay.
When we talk about roll-ups,
Yes.
we're talking about making Ethereum faster,
Right.
cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But how are those also part of the problem that Omni is trying to solve?
So it's like this. Imagine Ethereum is a highway, and there's way too much traffic. Roll-ups are like adding express lanes. They process transactions separately, which makes things faster, makes things cheaper. But they end up creating these separate lanes of activity.
Right, so more lanes, but we need a way to like merge between those lanes seamlessly.
Exactly.
And that's where Omni comes in.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really sets them apart is their approach to security. They call it natively secured, externally verified, which sounds a bit like a contradiction, but it's actually quite clever.
Natively secured, externally verified. It sounds good, but I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Okay, sure. So natively secured means that Omni is built to leverage Ethereum's existing security. They do this through something called restaking. Basically, validators on the Ethereum network can use their existing stake, their Ether, to also secure the Omni network. So it's like a double-duty security deposit.
So they're not even trying to like rebuild the wheel. They're saying, okay, we're just going to use Ethereum security.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical security. It's also about the signal it sends. Choosing to secure your new network with ETH implies a very strong belief in Ethereum's long-term success, which I think is really important for users and developers to see.
So it builds confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the externally verified part? Doesn't that kind of contradict the ethos of decentralization by relying on something outside the network?
It might seem that way, but the key is in how they use external verification. So they're using Comet BFT for consensus, which is known for its speed. We're talking sub-second transaction finality here.
Sub-second.
Yeah.
Is that even possible on a blockchain?
It is with Comet BFT. And this has been one of the biggest hurdles for adoption, is this wait time. You know you make a transaction. You're waiting for it to clear. They're eliminating that.
So speed seems to be a big theme here.
And for good reason. We're talking about technology that aims to revolutionize how we interact online. If it's slow, if it's clunky, no one's going to use it.
Right. So we've got the security angle covered. We've got the speed element. But what about the actual interoperability?
Right.
How do you actually get developers to want to build on something where they have to build across multiple blockchains?
And this is where I think it gets really, really interesting. They address this with two things. The universal gas marketplace and the Omni EVM.
Okay, those sound like game changers.
Yeah.
Give me the rundown.
Okay. So let's start with the universal gas marketplace. You know how annoying it is when you have to travel to a different country and you need a different currency.
That's the bane of my existence.
Right. So Omni lets you pay for gas fees, those little tolls you pay to use a blockchain, on any rollup using just OMNI tokens. It's like having one universal currency for the entire Ethereum ecosystem.
Now that to me is huge, because I think one of the biggest things that
For adoption?
yeah,
Totally.
is that people like, "Ugh, I don't want to have to manage all these different tokens."
Yeah,
This solves that.
it does.
What about the Omni EVM? That sounds even more interesting to me.
This is the really big aha moment. The Omni EVM is a platform for building what they call natively global applications. So you build your app once, and it works seamlessly across all of the different rollups on Ethereum.
Wait, so you're saying I don't have to build like a version of my app for this rollup and then another version for this rollup? It's just one app that works across everything.
Imagine if you had to build a separate version of your app for every single phone carrier.
Right, like it's 2003.
It'd be a nightmare.
So this is like
Yeah,
mind-blowing for developers.
this is what they're going for.
Okay. I'm starting to understand why this is a big deal. But for our very technical listeners out there, can we get a little bit more technical?
Sure.
What is it under the hood that makes all of this work?
So they're using some really cool technology to make this happen, like Ethereum's Engine API ABCI plus pack. Now, we don't need to get too bogged down in the details.
Just a taste.
Okay. So you can think of the engine API as like the brains of the operation, handling all the complex computations. And then ABCI++ is like the super efficient messaging system. It's keeping everything running smoothly. And it's what helps them achieve that sub-second finality.
So we've got this secure foundation, we have lightning-fast transactions, and then we have this platform.
Yeah.
Where you can actually build these applications. That's a lot. And we're just getting started.
Okay.
So we've laid a lot of groundwork here.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about what this actually looks like.
Yeah. What's the vision?
What's the vision?
Paint me a picture.
So Omni is painting a future where we might not even think about individual blockchains anymore. It just becomes one seamless, interconnected ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language.
Right.
Give me some concrete examples.
Okay. So remember those natively global applications that we were talking about? Imagine a DeFi app where you can move assets, lend, borrow across different blockchains without even realizing that it's happening behind the scenes.
So like a single financial system.
Yeah.
But it's decentralized.
That is huge.
And especially for people who maybe don't have access to traditional banking systems,
What?
this is huge.
Okay. So it's not just like this finance thing.
Right.
It's like everything.
Everything. Supply chains, gaming, digital identity.
It's like you're building a new internet,
That's the idea.
but with blockchain.
Yep.
Okay. So this is
It's ambitious.
a pretty ambitious vision.
It is.
What are some of the hurdles that they're going to have to overcome?
So they're not the only ones trying to solve interoperability.
Right.
It's a very competitive space.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to have to really convince people that this is the platform to build on.
So it comes down to like
Yeah.
community adoption.
Totally. And I think that's part of why they are really smart to focus on backward compatibility.
Oh, interesting.
So they want to make it easy
Yeah.
for existing applications to integrate with Omni. They don't want to force developers to completely start over.
Yeah, that's smart. It's like you're building a bridge instead of like a whole new island.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is always security,
Of course.
especially when you're talking about something that's trying to be so big.
Yeah.
If there's a security vulnerability,
Yeah.
that could be really bad.
That is make or break stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so while I think leveraging Ethereum's security is a really big advantage for them, it's not a set it and forget it situation.
Right.
They're going to need to constantly be staying vigilant, adapting to new threats, and continuing to earn the trust of users.
Yeah, because once that trust is broken,
Right.
it is so hard to get it back.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that's part of what makes the space so interesting, because there is this constant pressure to innovate, to do things better, and ultimately that benefits everyone.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the high-level vision. We've talked about
Yeah.
some of the challenges. For listeners out there who are like, okay, this sounds really cool. Tell me more. Where can they go?
So the white paper is a great place to start.
Of course.
But I will warn you, it's very technical.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Please do.
For the brave.
Yes, for those who are a little intimidated by technical white papers. Their website actually has some really great explainers.
Awesome.
And they also have a really active community on Discord and Twitter.
Okay.
So lots of good discussions happening there.
We'll link all of that in the show notes. But
Yeah.
before we move on, I just want to kind of reiterate a key point.
Yeah.
It feels like whether or not Omni is successful,
Yeah.
they represent this like really important shift in how we think about blockchain.
I totally agree.
Because it's like they're saying, hey, maybe it doesn't have to be this fragmented thing.
Yeah, they're really pushing the boundaries here.
Yeah.
Of what we think is possible with blockchain technology.
So it's almost like we're seeing the really early days
Yeah.
of a really big change.
Totally.
That's exciting.
It is.
But it also can feel kind of like, well, what does this actually mean for me?
Right. What does this mean for the everyday user? Yeah, that's a great question.
And that is something that we are going to explore in our final segment. All right, so we've gone really deep on the tech. We've talked about the big vision. But for the everyday person, what does this all actually mean?
I think that's the ultimate test, isn't it? Any new technology, how does it actually impact people in their daily lives?
Yeah, we can talk about interoperability. We can talk about NGAs.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is it actually going to make my life any easier?
Right. And I think for starters, imagine a world where Interacting with different blockchains is as easy as using apps on your phone.
Okay.
You want to send money to a friend, and they're on a different blockchain. No problem. It just works.
So no more like having to figure out how to bridge assets.
Exactly. It just disappears.
Yeah.
And you can focus on what you actually want to do.
It's like, remember the early days of the internet when
Yeah.
like sending email was like
You had to be an engineer.
a whole thing?
Right.
Now everybody's grandma's on Facebook.
Exactly.
This is what they're going for.
Yeah.
But for blockchain, which is huge.
And it's not just about convenience. Think about access.
Yeah.
For people in parts of the world who don't have robust financial systems, this is a game changer
So you're giving them access
to financial tools
to all of that,
that they wouldn't otherwise have.
which could then lead to a whole bunch of innovation.
Absolutely, because suddenly you're not just building for one little ecosystem. You're building for this massive interconnected web of possibilities.
Let's say they're writing
Oh.
a symphony for an orchestra versus just like one instrument. Okay. I'm convinced this has been amazing. But I want to zoom out for a second, because even if Omni doesn't succeed,
Right.
I think it's really important that they're kind of like changing the conversation around blockchain.
Yeah, they're challenging the assumptions
Yeah.
of what we think is even possible.
Like, maybe it doesn't have to be this fragmented landscape.
And I think that's the most exciting thing. It's
Right.
like we're seeing a real shift in how people are approaching this problem.
So we could be
Yeah.
in the very early days of
Yeah.
something huge.
The future is being written right now.
This is awesome. So to everybody listening out there, if you are deep in the blockchain trenches, or you're just kind of dipping your toes in for the first time,
Stay curious.
stay curious.
Keep exploring.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Because who knows what we're going to discover.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it.
It is.
All right. Well, we will wrap up this deep dive. We'll make sure to include links to Omni's white paper, their website, all their social media communities down in the show notes. So if you want to learn more, check it out. Until next time, keep diving deep.